Hey YouTube, Dan with CultureReview.com again, and on this week's podcast we talked about disaster preparedness in light of Hurricane Harvey hitting Texas and Louisiana. And the number one and number two items on my list of things to have in case of a disaster were water and food. And I also mentioned on that podcast, there'll be a link in the show notes today, or in the description, that long-term storage of both water and food is essential because you never know when you're going to need it, and it pays to put it away ahead of time. So number one we're going to talk about is water, and I wanted to show you visually a couple of the things. So the first one that I have in my hand is the cheap way of doing it, which is the hard heavy-duty liquid jugs. In this case, Arizona tea. You could use pop bottles. So 2 liters of that or 1 gallon of this. And as I mentioned on the podcast, figure out what your daily needs are. Call it, 2 gallons minimum a day, times the number of people, times, say, a week to get you started off with. So in my case, I got 4 people times 4 times 2 gallons a day, 8 gallons a day minimum. Times that by 7, that's 56. So call it 50 to be on the safe side. So I need 50 of these, or if I didn't have 50 of these, or however many 2-liter bottles that is, I have no idea. I'm not going to do the conversion. The other option is this big thing over here called the Aquatainer, and these hold 7 gallons. I think you can get them in smaller ones, but I get the ones that are in 7 gallons. As you can see, it's got a vent tube in the back. Comes with a spigot, so you flip the spigot around on the outside, and then you can just pop it on its side and dispense water. It's really handy. They stack really well. They'll stack alternating. You can get them on Amazon. I'll have a link in the description for them, so you can see them and see the pricing. I wouldn't recommend getting them on Amazon because they're big and bulky and they cost more for shipping. So if you go to places like Cabela's or Bass Pro or hunting or farm stores, they'll have them, and I've seen them. I've gotten them for as cheap as like 10 bucks. If you find them on sale, 10, 15 bucks. Usually a little bit more on Amazon because, like I said, the shipping. But these are really good. And then the next thing is long-term food storage. What I've got here is a 50-pound bag of oats, and what I've got here is a 6-gallon Mylar bag inside of a 5-gallon bucket. Now, the buckets I get on eBay, these are just used buckets. They had all kinds of stuff. You can get these for free from like delis and bakeries. Sometimes they have frosting if it's a bakery, I think, or like pickles or something. But some places just flat out won't give them to you, and other ones that you do may end up giving you different sizes, like square ones and like small ones, like maybe 2-gallon ones. Those don't work for me. So I just get these on eBay. I get they usually sell them in the packs of 10. So I've paid about 45 bucks shipped, so about $4.50 for 1 bucket. You get the Mylar bags. They maybe $1 on Amazon. Again, I'll have a link in the description so you can see. And then the other thing that you need is an oxygen absorber, because there's 3 things that will affect food if it's stored long term, and that's moisture, light, and bugs. So you want to keep all those out, and the way to do that is by using the bags to keep everything in there. The buckets are another layer of protection against them, and then the Mylar bags help keep the oxygen out because these will oxidize any oxygen in the bags when you put them in. These are 2000 cc oxygen absorbers. They have all different sizes, but generally, from what I've seen, the rule of thumb is you want about 2000 cc's per 5-gallon bag. These are actually 6-gallon bags, which is why they're a lot bigger, but that gives you more room to seal it, which you'll see in a minute. So for every gallon, and you can get different sizes if you want. For every gallon, you need about 300 to 400 cc's of oxygen absorber. So if you go with a 2000 cc bag or oxygen absorber in a 5 or 6 gallon bag, that should be plenty. However, I do double up because it just works better in my opinion. So what you do is get your bag ready. It's a good workout too. Now for oats like these are, it is a little dusty. That's why I'm doing it in my nice, lovely laundry closet. A little bit less mess to clean up here. You might be thinking, why in the world are you showing me your dark, dingy laundry closet? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. If you play your cards right, you might get to see my storage shed next. So, 150-pound bag I've found will generally fit in about 4 or 5 gallon buckets worth. So, just want to shake it around a bit. We can get a couple more. A little bit more in here. So you can do anything bulk really, like grains are really good, like oats. Rice is good. Rice will store really good in these. So now, throw an oxygen absorber in there. I forgot to put one in the bottom, but that's all right. Get a hair straightener, preferably not your wife's, unless you can do it and get away with it, guys. But she might find that out. So you can see, hopefully, that we're right below the top of the bucket. That'll leave enough room for the lid, which reminds me I have no idea where I put the lids, so that'll be a problem. And when you're handling these bags, you want to make sure not to crimp them in any way, because that could create a pinhole in the sides possibly. And then if you spend a whole bunch of time sealing the bags up, it's worthless because all the air is going to get in anyway, because these oxygen absorbers are going to start working fast and they're going to suck all the air out. But then if the air keeps replenishing through the hole, then you're pretty much screwed. And you've just wasted a bag and about 5 minutes of your time, and an oxygen absorber. You can use an iron, and you'd need a flat surface, which is why I use the hair straightener, because then you don't need like a board or something. And I think you can get a better seal with the hair straightener than you can with an iron. Get as much of the air out as possible. Make sure this is hot. And this stuff is, if you like bubble wrap, this stuff is just about as much fun to play with if you ever end up with any extra. I don't know. I'm just kind of weird like that. So I'm just going to take my time and work up, if you can see. And don't touch it because it's hot. There's a bunch of air stuck in here now because it's almost all sealed except for this very end. Alright. Got most of the air out, so I'll finish it off. So what should happen now is within probably a couple days for the oxygen to all be depleted in the bag, assuming that you sealed it right. You should be able to pick up the bag and this won't even move. There wouldn't be any slack anywhere in the bag because there's just a vacuum in there now. And if it doesn't work, just trim off where you sealed it the first time, throw another oxygen absorber in and try it again. That's the nice thing about using the 6-gallon bags is you have all this, I have like a foot of headroom here. I've done that before where I missed a spot and there's a hole. So you just chop it off, throw another one in there the next day when you come back and check on them, and then you should be good. The lids, you want to make sure when you get them on the bags that they are, or on the buckets, that they've got the seals on them still. Because even though, you know, these are used, I'm not going to buy new buckets for this, but they will help in case there is a failure in the bag. They'll still help with the keeping the oxygen out. There'll be a little bit in the bin itself, or in the bucket, but it's not going to be bad. The longest I've gone using food or eating food that's been stored in like this is about 2 years, and I couldn't tell any difference. So it stores really well, just as what it is. So that's about it. Take a look at or go listen to the podcast if you want to learn more. You can check out my website at culturereviewed.com is where I've got everything listed. I'm going to be doing more of these videos on the 8 principles of disaster preparedness that I had in that podcast. I'm sure I'll be expanding into a couple more areas. I've already got a couple more. So I might do a part 2 of that podcast. But these are cheap ways to get some long-term water storage and some long-term food storage in a reliable way so that when you come back to it in 6, 12, 18 months, or maybe sooner if there's a disaster that happens, then you're going to be a lot more prepared for it than if you didn't do all the work, put in the effort, and have this stuff ready to go in case something did happen. Because that's the whole point. The theme of the Culture Reviewed is learning from the past to influence our future. And we've seen in other hurricanes and other disasters, if people aren't prepared, then it makes it a lot harder. And the whole point of life is to be able to make things better over time. So I think that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what can happen here for you if you put in a little bit of effort and get some of this stuff stored away. So with that, I'm going to stop yakking. I've got the rest of this bag to finish off with some more buckets, and check out the podcast, and we'll see you next time.